I mean, it's pure adrenaline, honestly. I will get out after a race for 3.5 hours, and still 6 or 7 hours later, like, I can't go to sleep.
Thanks for joining us for Season 2 of the Go Sokal podcast. Today we've got a really special guest with us, Stefan Parsons, who is the driver of the 99 car, which Sokal sponsors. So why don't we get started and just tell me a little bit about you, where you're from, your background.
Yeah, so I've been born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina my entire life. Grew up in a racing family. My dad and my uncle both worked and raced in NASCAR, both on the racing side and the TV side. So I grew up in it. I've never known anything but that, right? So grew up always wanting to race around the Lake Norman area, and that's kind of where NASCAR's headquartered, right? It's where all the teams are and stuff. So I was very immersed in it from a young age, and I begged my parents to let me race. They against their best intentions, I did end up racing. I started when I was 12 in Bandolero cars, which are kind of like full-bodied go-karts. Did that at Charlotte Motor Speedway during the summers. Eventually moved up to legend cars, and then the full-bodied stock cars, late models, and then the NASCAR, and here I am.
Well, that's pretty exciting. Mm-hmm. So you made mention that you grew up in a racing family. So you want to talk a little bit about your growing up with that? I'm sure that was kind of a interesting dynamic.
Yeah, definitely. So my dad raced in NASCAR for 20 some odd years. Raced in the Cup Series and what's now the Xfinity Series. But he stopped racing, or he retired in 2001. So I was only 3 years old. Actually, his last race was the same weekend as my third birthday. So,
oh, wow.
So I never really got to see him race too much,
right.
Unfortunately. But it didn't really matter at that point for me. Like, the plant was already seated, right?
Yeah.
Grew up. My uncle also raced in NASCAR. He stopped racing in 1988. Went on to become a broadcaster, become arguably more well-known as a broadcaster than he was a race car driver. But just growing up in a family like that, like, I just have never wanted to do anything else. I've never, looking back as a kid, there was never a weekend that I wasn't looking forward to either going to a racetrack or watching a race on TV or anything like that. So growing up in a family like that has been a huge advantage, not only for me to know what I want to do, but as I kind of progress along the levels of NASCAR and kind of climb that ladder, having my dad there who's done these things, right, who's started from the bottom and made his way to the top series of NASCAR. So it's a huge advantage for me. I'm very thankful to have him and to just kind of be able to build on the family legacy, if you want to call it that, and kind of continue along that path.
So you made mention of how you kind of progressed to the Xfinity Series. So let's talk, because I don't know much about how NASCAR and how you get to that level. Mm-hmm. So what's kind of if somebody wants to get into it, like, what is the steps that get you to that, if that makes sense?
So it depends on age. I started when I was 12, and I kind of, at this point, or in this day and age, that's late. Like, a lot of kids start when they're like 5 or 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it depends on how old you are. If you have a young kid, usually probably Bandoleros is the best option, just because you can race at Charlotte Motor Speedway. They do a series called the Summer Shootout during the summer, which is on like at Charlotte Motor Speedway. There's a little quarter mile on the front stretch that they use. I did that for 4 or 5 years. It all depends on age level, really. Bandoleros are kind of for like 8 to 12 to 13, and then you kind of graduate to a legend car, which is more. It kind of teaches you more of the skills that you need to progress. You know what I mean? It's a manual gearbox. It has a clutch. It's got a lot more power, that kind of thing. So, and then from there, there's a couple ways you can go. This is obviously, I grew up racing asphalt. Some people race dirt, but from there you move into late models. You can either run like a super late model or late model stock, which are both Similar, but very different at the same time. Outwardly, they look similar. Underneath, they're a lot different. It's all about, really, for young kids, it's all about seat time and gaining experience. Even now, like in the truck and Xfinity series, it's about making laps, it's about learning. A lot of times, we're going to tracks that or at least for me, I'm going to tracks that I haven't seen before, I've never been to. Really, the goal for even from starting out is to learn and to progress and to kind of hone your skills and be able to elevate the way you can compete on a high level.
Obviously, you've had lots of probably really great moments in your racing career so far, but what has been the absolute, up until now, the best moment that you can recall?
I would say probably my first Xfinity race. It's kind of an interesting story. So in 2019, I was scheduled to run my first Xfinity race at Iowa in July. But that whole summer, I was off. I was going to college at the time, so I was off for the summer. So that whole summer, I was going to the racetrack with the team that I was supposed to race for, BJ McLeod Motorsports, which is the team I still drive for today. So I would go on the weekends and work and help at the racetrack and just be there, right? Because I, thankfully from a young age, my dad kind of instilled in me how important it is to be able to work on your own car, work on your own equipment. So I grew up racing late models and working on my own car. So kind of along those same lines, I was going to the racetrack with them, and we got to Daytona 4th of July weekend, and I wasn't scheduled to race. I was just down there working, and the driver who was supposed to drive our car actually got sick. And surprise, I got to race that weekend.
Oh, wow.
So to get that opportunity alone at Daytona, which is one of the most prestigious racetracks we go to, was incredible in and of itself. And we actually I finished 12th. Which is still to date my best finish in Xfinity. So I'd say probably that was the best moment so far. Just
how nervous were you when they were like, "Here you go, go race"?
It's funny, like you kind of hype yourself up and you play out these scenarios in your head, and you kind of can overthink yourself and kind of really kind of get in your own head. But as soon as you sit in that race, it's kind of cliche, but as soon as you sit in that race car, it's just like nothing else matters. Like you're calm, you're at home, you're at peace. So yeah, once I finally strapped in and started to make laps and practice, I was like, okay, you get over that point, like oh, I'm racing Daytona. But as soon as you roll out on pit road, you're like, okay, let's focus on the task at hand here. So, and it was just really gratifying for me because I had been through some highs and some lows at that point. I got in a bad wreck when I was still racing late models in 2017 and totaled my car. And after that, I didn't know if I was going to ever race again. So to go from that point to making my Xfinity debut at Daytona, it was very, very gratifying.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. So you made mention about this really bad wreck. I'm assuming, is that maybe one of the scariest moments for you?
I guess you could call it scary. Like, it's weird. It's funny looking back. At no point really are you ever scared, but that was probably the worst wreck I've ever had. My wheel hit another car's wheel, and it kind of launched me into the air, and I never really hit the ground before I hit the wall.
Oh.
And I actually broke my foot. So, when I hit the wall, my foot slipped off the brake pedal, and I went to put my foot back on, and I was like, uh-oh. I was like, that's not right. I was like, something's wrong down there. So, yeah, and then I got out, and my shoe is, just all twisted and stuff. So, it was, that was scary is I guess, the operative word, but that was definitely the worst wreck I've ever been in. And I had to wear a boot for, 3 months. It was not fun. Ew. But, that was definitely the worst. That was... knock on wood, that's the only time I've ever been really hurt in a race car. So
most people, Stefan, never get the opportunity to drive a race car. Mm-hmm. So how do you describe that experience?
Oh, that's hard. It's pretty indescribable. There's no feeling like it, honestly. There's a couple analogies I've heard. One of them is it's like it's like flying a fighter jet in an arena.
Oh wow.
It's like dancing with a chainsaw. There's no...
I'm going to let you keep that one.
Yeah. No,
don't want to do that.
There's no... you can't expect anything. I mean, it's pure adrenaline, honestly. I will get out after a race for 3.5 hours, and still 6 or 7 hours later, like, I can't go to sleep. I can't. Your adrenaline's so high. You're still pumped up, you know. It is honestly for me, it is the best feeling ever. You go into the weekend, right? And there's a lot to deal with, right? You have to manage relationships. You have to manage relationships with your team owner, with your team, with your partners. You have to do all that, and it's not bad. You know, I enjoy it, but it's just a lot that you have to deal with. And then as soon as you get done with that national anthem and you strap in that car, nothing else matters. Like, the only thing that matters for the next 3.5 hours is how fast you can drive this race car. You grow up and you're passionate about something, you know what I mean? From the time you're 2 years old and you say, this is what I want to do. And actually, you know, having watched it on TV and watched it from the sidelines growing up and being out there and doing it is like, I can't even, I honestly, I'm having a hard time finding a word to describe it. It is just, it's such an awesome feeling.
So how fast are you driving when you're on that track?
It just depends. Like, it depends on the size of the track. Like Daytona, we were probably going like 195 or 200 for most of the race. It all depends. And people ask too, like, does it feel like you're going that fast? Well, speed's relative, right? Like, you're going 200 miles an hour, but it's a 2.5 mile track. You know what I mean? It doesn't really feel like you're going that fast until something goes wrong, and then until you hit something, and then you realize, oh, I am going fast. You're going literally as fast as you can go every lap. So it's a fun feeling.
Obviously, racing's a sport and a skill, and you know that all plays a role into that. But what is your racing strategy when you're out there? Like, how do you know when to pass somebody? How do you know when to go faster, slow down, move around? Like, how do you approach that?
It's kind of instinctual. Like, you really. For me, at least, a lot of times, it's not really something that you spend a lot of time thinking about. You just kind of instinctually do it. You know what I mean? A lot of people always say that, you know, you can teach somebody to go fast, but it's harder to teach somebody how to actually race. And there is a difference. And that's not to say that whatever move I make is always right. Like, I've certainly made wrong moves and made mistakes before, but it's really instinctual. Like, if I see a car in front of me and I'm faster than them, I kind of know how to pass them and how to go around them. And a lot of times too, you can kind of see where somebody in front of you is struggling, like what point is probably their weak spot in front of you where they're a little bit slower. And you can kind of adjust with the way you get off the throttle and the way you get back on the throttle. You can adjust and kind of take advantage of that and kind of use that to your advantage and kind of set yourself. They call it setting up somebody to pass them. That could be like a 45-minute conversation in and of itself. But
maybe we'll have you back to talk about that more.
Yeah, definitely.
How weird is it after you've been racing for a weekend to get back in your normal car and drive?
It's honestly, if people are surprised, it's really not that, like, it's not that different. Just because the way you drive a street car is just so drastically different than the way you drive a race car. It's almost like it's apples to oranges. Like, one does not really relate to the other. So, yeah, I've never had the problem of getting in a car and after getting a rental car after the race and going like 120 miles an hour. I haven't done that. I know some people who have that problem, but I think they have that problem on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. I don't think it's just a racing thing, but the way I look at it, we go fast enough. I get to go fast enough for 3 hours that I don't need to go any faster after on the interstate where I could actually get in trouble for it. So,
yeah, you think, I don't know if getting out of the speeding ticket with the excuse of, hey, I'm a race car driver.
That's harder.
Would probably not be
work. Most of it does not work.
Yeah, probably not going to be the right excuse to use. Yeah. So I see this very beautifully designed helmet that's sitting here. So you want to talk maybe about like some of the safety features?
I actually just got this helmet this week off Axis Paint, who's painted all my helmets, did an awesome job on it. If anybody's ever seen the movie Tron Legacy, that's one of my favorite movies, so I kind of wanted to be inspired by that. Basically, so this clip right here, this connects to what's called a head and neck restraint. And so what it does is it goes under your seat belts. So when you tighten your seat belt down, it's connected to you, it's connected to your helmet. So it basically, if you hit something, it keeps your head from basically going all the way forward. It keeps your head, you only have probably 2 inches for your head to move forward. So, you don't hit the steering wheel, you don't break your neck or whatever. So that's one of the cool safety features we have. So if you look at this, you'll see there's like this vent deal here in this kind of port. So what this does is we actually have a what's called a cool box, and it's basically it blows cold air into your helmet, cold and fresh air. Especially during the summer, it's really useful because it can get 130, 140 degrees in the car. So any air at that point is good air. Yeah. So this red thing is a radio harness. It connects to radio in the car, so I can talk to my crew and my spotter and all them. They can talk to me and I can hear them. They can hear me. If you look at helmets now versus probably 30, 40 years ago, people were running like open face helmets. Like literally it was like this. None of this was here. Their face was just exposed. Safety has come a long, long way in the last 30 years, that's for sure.
Does NASCAR mandate as far as what safety features you have to have
Yes.
in your vehicle?
Yeah. So everybody has to run this head and neck restraint that I was talking about. All these helmets have to meet like a certain specification, like a certain safety rating for us to be able to use them. They have to be approved. Like you take it to the racetrack and the inspector has to look at it and make sure it passes inspection. Like seat belts, seats, all that all have what's called an SFI rating, and they expire about every 2 years. So you always have to be updating that, and it keeps the seats. The seats are especially important. If you look at a seat, again, 30 years ago compared to a seat now, it's like they're two completely different things. We have like full containment seats, so it holds you in by your ribs. Like your head is completely covered. A lot of people run carbon fiber seats now. So yeah, there's a lot of. That's one thing that NASCAR's done a really good job at in the past 15 years is getting that safety level and those safety specifications up to keep us all safe.
You made a mention about your helmet in the summer, especially it gets really, really hot. How hot does it actually get in a NASCAR?
It gets hot, like especially during the summer. Like I remember last year I raced at Texas. Raced at Texas in the middle of June.
Oh,
and it was like 100 degrees outside, and I mean it had to have been probably 130, 140 in the car.
Oh wow!
So you're sitting in basically a sauna for 3.5 hours.
Oh.
So I'll lose like anywhere from probably 8 to 12 pounds of water weight during the race during the summer.
Oh man,
just sweating so much.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it gets hot.
You've raced a lot of places. What would you say is your favorite track, and why?
I actually really enjoy, probably from just a racing standpoint, as far as somewhere that I've been good at, is probably Vegas. We've always had good races there. This past weekend we didn't have good luck, but we've always been fast there. And I enjoy going to Vegas. Like I don't really gamble that much, but I just enjoy like
it's Vegas, a fun place.
The sights and the sights and the sounds and all that. But I got to race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway a couple years ago, which is probably if not the most prestigious racetracks in the world. So that was really cool. Racing at Charlotte, the kind of your home track where you grew up going to, that's really cool. But honestly, I enjoy any racetrack that I get to go to be completely honest. Do
you have a racetrack that you've never raced at that you are dying to race at?
Yeah, I'd love to do more road courses. So there are a couple of road courses on the schedule, and we're actually adding more. We just added Circuit of the Americas, which is in Austin, Texas. It's a fairly new racetrack that Formula One has raced at. I'd love to race there. I'd love to race in Watkins Glen, New York, Sonoma, California. I'd say there's definitely some road courses that I would love to do. So
do you have any personal goals in the next 5 years as far as NASCAR goes?
Well, the ultimate goal is to make it to the top level, the Cup Series, right?
For sure.
And to win and to win championships. That's the ultimate goal. That's every race car driver's goal. But for me, I just want to gain respect, I guess. I really want to make my partners happy. I really want to make my team happy. I want to continue progressing the progression we've been on. I'd like to be full time within the next year or two. That's the goal. And beyond that, just go out there. The ultimate goal is to go out there and do your best. Do the best you can for your team and for your partners. That's the ultimate goal. Obviously, I have more intrinsic goals of just kind of little things on weekends that I can execute and do better. But I'd say the ultimate goal is just to get full time and just be able to showcase our partners and really go out there and compete at a high level.
So you touched a little bit about how social media is obviously playing a role in racing, just as it plays a role in everybody's lives these days. So how do you handle that as an up and coming NASCAR driver? Do people reach out to you directly, or do you have like a team that handles that? Like what's that like?
Some drivers have a team. For me, at my level, it's just me. So it's a challenge for sure. I've definitely had to learn a lot, especially over the past 3 years, honestly. Even this past weekend, we had a sponsor that we had Dogecoin, which is like a cryptocurrency, on our car, and that it blew up on social media. Like, we got a lot of engagements. I was getting a lot of tweets, and I couldn't even refresh and look at fast enough. So that's kind of an outlier. That doesn't happen very often, but it's hard. You have people tweeting at you, responding to you. You kind of have to pick and choose. Sometimes it's not always positive. Kind of have to pick and choose which ones you interact with and which ones you don't. But at the end of the day, I love social media. I love the fact that on social media, the fact that I can interact with fans, right? Or a fan can go interact with Kevin Harvick or Kyle Busch and be able to have a conversation with them.
Right. It's a whole lot different.
15 years ago, that would have been, they would have to sit in line at an autograph session for 3 hours just to even get them to acknowledge them. So I love social media for that, and I love how it can bring people together, especially the NASCAR community. The NASCAR community on Twitter is a very close-knit group. I feel like everybody wants the same goal. Everybody's on the same page. So I really enjoy that social media aspect of it, and seeing just not even for myself, but just the interaction between drivers and fans and sponsors and fans. Like, it's just it's a really cool situation that we get to have that's unique to our sport.
So do you ever get starstruck when you meet other drivers? I'm sure you've mentioned you grew up watching these people race, and so do you ever have that feeling when you meet one of them?
I'd say when I was younger, I definitely did, but now it's cool. I get to race against a lot of them. So not really now, but when I was younger, I definitely did. I would go to a race, and I would go to a practice or whatever, and I would see Kevin Harvick or Jeff Burton or Jeff Gordon or anything. I'd be like, oh my God, that's Jeff Gordon. But now it's like, you see these people every weekend. You interact with these people. You race against some of these people. So definitely not as much now than I was when I was younger.
So when you're not racing, what are you doing?
A lot of times during the week, our jobs don't, they don't just start and end when we get to the racetrack on the weekend. A lot of times during the week, I'm at the race shop, either figuring out stuff for the weekend coming up, or working on the car or whatever. So a lot of times during the week, that's kind of what I do. But for fun, I enjoy snowboarding. I enjoy surfing. I enjoy going on the lake. I enjoy hanging out with friends. I'm lucky. I've got a pretty good group of friends that are all in racing. It's not just drivers. It's crew members. It's spotters. It's people on the talent side or the agency side. It's kind of hard. Racing is a very immersive lifestyle.
It sounds like it.
You know what I mean? So you hear about work-life balance. There is none of that. We don't have that. So it's like literally from 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the night, you are dealing with something. There's something that is with racing that there's a situation, or either there's a situation that you're handling, or you're thinking about the next weekend, you're thinking about the next race. You're always thinking about how you can be better. So I spend a lot of my time either doing something with racing or even thinking about racing.
So obviously you have sponsors that sponsor you, like we mentioned. Sokal is one of your sponsors this season. So what are those sponsorship dynamics like? Do you get on the phone and talk to these sponsors personally? Do you have somebody that handles that for you? What is that like?
Yeah, definitely. So it depends on kind of the level that you're at. Obviously, with say a Hendrick Motorsports, they have people that deal with those sponsors directly. For me, I pretty much deal with the sponsors directly myself. I'm very lucky that I have great partners in Sokal and another company called Spring Rates, and I deal with them directly. So I talk to Mark quite often, kind of give him updates, especially when Sokal's on the car. I'll send him pictures in the weekend. I'll update him on how the race went and kind of stuff like that.
He loves it. He shares it with the employees,
I know.
And we all love it. We're pretty invested. So.
Yeah, for sure. And it's awesome when you have partners who are passionate about the same things you are. You know what I mean? Like, not only Mark, but I feel like SoCal as a whole is really passionate about, obviously, the automotive industry
For sure.
and racing. So when you can kind of align that with kind of what you like and what the company believes in, and that lines up, it's a really, really fun time. It's a really good relationship.
I know me personally, I was at a restaurant when you were racing in Daytona, and we were sitting there, and it was on we were sitting at the bar, and it was on, and I literally looked at my fiance, I was like, Scott, oh my gosh, that's our driver,
Yeah.
like that's our car, and he was like, okay, calm down. I'm like, stop it, this is exciting. I'm like, I talked to him, I know him.
Yeah.
Scott's like, okay, people are looking at you. It's like, stop. So, anyways, sad story. So let's talk a little bit about your team, because I know you probably have your own pit crew and all that. So what's that team dynamic like?
So I've been at BJ McLeod Motorsports for 3 years now. This is my third year. And really, we've kept kind of the same crew that we've had for those 3 years. So I've really gotten to know everybody there and have really good relationships with everybody there. This winter, I worked there all winter to help get our stuff ready for Daytona. And I really enjoyed that. And it was really gratifying because we worked really hard for Daytona, because Daytona's, it's our biggest race of the year. And especially now, the way the schedule works with COVID and everything, we only get to practice and qualify so many times. So
Wow.
if we would have gone to Daytona and not qualified, we wouldn't have been able to race until May. We literally would not have been able to go to the racetrack just because there's so many cars trying to go and only so many spots. So we worked really hard all winter, me and the guys on the 99 car, really hard to get our stuff for Daytona, really good. And fortunately, we had Sokal in the car. And we unloaded at Daytona, and we were really fast. Like, we had a really good car. And it's stuff like that, intrinsically and extrinsically, like for myself and our whole team, our whole crew, it's just such a motivator to know you put in all that work. You spend there were a lot of long nights at the shop, right? Like, we did all we know how to do. We really fine-tuned on that thing, and to unload and be fast and be faster than a lot of cars that frankly have bigger budgets than we do,
Right.
is very gratifying. So, and it really set the tone for this year. You know what I mean? We really have we've built a lot of new cars for this year and got a lot of new equipment. So it really set the tone for kind of that work ethic that we put in and kind of the results that we want to get out of that. So it's been great. I love everybody at that team, and I hope they love me. But yeah, it's been awesome.
Do you have any kind of superstitions when it comes to, like, the day of the race? Are there certain things like you do or you don't do?
I always get ready the same way. I have the same morning routine, like shower, brush teeth, get ready, whatever. I obviously I wash them, but I wear the same underwear every race. Yeah, that's about it. Like, it doesn't do anything, but it's kind of a thing, a routine you get yourself into, and you're like, oh wow, if I change it up, you never know, something bad could happen. So yeah. I'd say that's probably it. Obviously,
you've been racing for a while. You grew up in a racing family. So what driver, past, present, which one has influenced you the most, could you say?
Oh man, there's been a ton. So I grew up in my dad had a Cup Series team, so he owned a team. So I got to grow up around some really, really awesome people like Michael McDowell, who actually just won the Daytona 500. He used to drive for my dad, so I got to grow up around him, and he's very strong Christian, like a very, very good man. So to grow up around him and see the attitude he had and the way he treated people and just the way he carried himself was a real inspiration to me, and I kind of try to still follow that to this day. Josh Wise also drove for my dad, and he kind of saw how hard he works and how hard he worked and still works at what he does, and just the work ethic he put in. So I'd say people like that were very influential on me, and I've fortunately now I have a lot of good friends that are in the racing community that I can kind of lean off of and kind of lean on for advice and stuff. So I've been really, really grateful and lucky to have grown around some great people like that.
So I know the sport is evolving, just like any other sport. So how is it changing, and how do you feel about that?
It's definitely changing. I think you're seeing now more than ever how important social media is. This past week, we raced at Las Vegas this past weekend. The week before that, Marcus Lemonis, who owns Camping World, their title sponsor for the Truck Series, he actually went on Twitter and asked who was unsponsored for the weekend, for the race that weekend, and he sponsored like 10 trucks that weekend in that race. So just stuff like that, you're starting to see really how important social media is, and for sponsors too, just engagement, just getting content out there, getting engagement, helping partners get return on their investment. It's more important now than ever. You know, you really, you're having to get creative now to have a voice and kind of build your brand and kind of set an image for yourself and you don't want to set a false image, right? Like, you really just want to get out there and show people who you really are and what you stand for and the kind of stuff you do on a daily basis. So it's definitely evolving from where it was even 10 years ago with the advent of social media. I think you're seeing a lot of younger drivers embrace that, and a lot of probably veterans that are starting to embrace it more. And you're seeing just it's the kind of the landscape as a whole is changing, even with sponsorships. You know, you have your traditional sponsorship, and you also have business to business sponsorship. So the landscape is definitely changing, and I have a feeling it's going to look a lot different even so in 10 more years.
Stefan, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. This was really informational. I know we have a lot of fans that are keeping up with you, and they reach out to us about you, so I know that people are really, really going to enjoy listening to this. So thanks again, and hey, maybe we'll have you back for a follow-up.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed being here, and I hope I can come back.
Yeah, well, we wish you the best of luck, and I can promise you that everybody here at SoCal and all the listeners on the Go SoCal podcast will definitely be watching you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.